Hi, and welcome back. I'm Christina Santiago, and you're watching The Magic of Giving. Today's show features Second Harvest Food Bank of Central Florida. We have now discussed the history and overall goals of the organization. Now let's talk about the various programs they offer. Returning is Greg Higgerson, Vice President of Development for Second Harvest Food Bank, and joining us is Judy Kellogg, Grocery Alliance Manager. First of all, thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
So how has hunger evolved over the years?
Well, for so many years in this country, having a job, really any kind of job, was enough to provide you with the basics of life, all the shelter and the clothes and food and transportation, those kinds of things. Somewhere along the line, that kind of went off the rails, and so instead of what we often think of when we think of hunger and poverty, those people that are living in chronic, maybe generational poverty, what we see today is, in addition to that, much more of what we call circumstantial poverty. People who have they've gone to school, they've had jobs, they've maybe lost jobs, gone back to try to work at jobs that maybe didn't pay as much as they were making before, and they're just really struggling to get by. And so what we have now, when you think of the face of hunger in Central Florida, it's not so easy to pick out. It looks an awful lot like you and I, because these are folks that are like you and I. They've just hit a very rough patch financially for one reason or another, and they just need some help in most cases. And the most basic help that they need, among the things that they wrap around that, is food. And so when we're talking about people needing help last year with food 4 million times nearly in Central Florida, that gives you a sense of how many folks are out there. By the way, sometimes we think that homelessness must be the only reason why people would need food, but truthfully, of those millions of pounds that we distribute at Second Harvest, about 12% winds up in organizations that are helping the homeless. The rest are people who have homes, they have apartments, and they're just struggling to get by. They're living at that poverty level or below, and having a tough time.
And you touched on a good point. I bet you the viewers at home don't realize that the face of hunger could be any one of us, right?
Well, we live in a largely service economy here in Central Florida, literally hundreds of thousands of low-paying jobs that are that epitome of a paycheck or two away from disaster that we hear about. And it doesn't take much to be a disaster. It can be a car repair or filling a child's prescription, especially if you don't have health insurance. Some of those kinds of things that many of us take for granted sort of will knock a low-income family right out of the saddle for a period of time, and then they need help.
Now, Judy, you are a food bank employee,
Correct.
right? Can you explain the circumstances that led you up to that point to become an employee?
Well, it all started about 5 years ago when my husband, that is a civil engineer right here in Florida, built a lot of things that you drive by. His office downsized and they closed their Orlando branch. And that started us having to, he's now out of work. The economy is shifting. The building is slowed down. And we're faced once again with not having that income. So we had to exhaust all our resources. You go through your 401k, you really try to swim upstream as quickly as you possibly can. Never do you think that you have to go anywhere outside your home to ask for help, nor would we even know where to begin to do that. So once everything was exhausted and we were faced with, right at Christmas time, we got, we were trying to work with our mortgage company. We lived in our house for over 15 years. My children were, I think my son was 7 months and my daughter was 2 years old when we moved in. So that's the only home they knew. And now here we are faced with, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? They hadn't come up with any type of programs to really assist us at that time, and banks weren't really willing to do anything. So we had 7 days to get out of our house right after the holidays. And it started that process of, where do we go? Who do we call? They told me to call Access to get on food stamps. And, when we first started and called there, they said, well, you have $100 in the bank. We can't assist you just yet. We're like, well, okay, that check didn't clear. As soon as it does, we won't have that $100. Call back. Once you have nothing, then we could help you. So you pretty much, you're at a loss. So we I remember the day we moved out of our house. A church member said that we could live with them until we figured out what was going to go on. And I'm sitting there in the rain with pretty much everything I own in my car. And I finally got the call from Access because they have to interview you. And she's asking me a series of questions, and the very one, she said, "Are you homeless?" And I'm sitting there going, okay, well, I just handed my key over to some, investment company who purchased our home for $1. And I'm sitting in the car, it's pouring rain. I don't know how long the good graces of this woman is going to let us live there. So yes, I guess I'm homeless. And that's when it really hit me that, here we are. We've always helped people. I used to do give food to my neighbors and help them with their bills, a couple that were shut in and everything. And now here I'm one that needs assistance, and I really did not know where to turn. So about a year later after this, we went to the Christian Help Center, which is one of the agencies that is supported by Second Harvest. And they work with people who are needing to find work. And they give a lot of encouragement. And my husband, I had this card for a year that somebody gave me, and I said, look, we're going to have to go. And so my husband went down because I was working part-time, and he went down there and he was amazed. We got this box of food. And to us, what that box of food meant, we always had dinner. That was our time. My kids' friends knew that they could come to the Kellogg's house and have a hot meal and be around at the dinner table. And that was our biggest thing, like how are we going to provide that? And so when we received that box of food and had fruits and vegetables and a brownie mix and things that you do without, you'd be surprised when you're downsizing. The one thing I want to get across to people is you lose that sense of choice. You no longer have a choice. The choices you have to make is, am I going to be able to keep the lights on? My kids are sick this week and I have to do a copay. Or, where am I going to get gas? Our biggest thing that we learned was free was very expensive. People would offer you things like, come here for a free meal. We couldn't get there because you couldn't afford the gas. So you realize that all these luxury items, food became a luxury item.
I can imagine that there's probably families watching this today that are going through circumstances similar to that of what you
Most
went
definitely.
through. Okay. So if you had to give one piece of advice to those that are sitting at home watching this, what would you say to where they'll get out there and get the help they need?
Reach out, don't be embarrassed. It is a shameful experience because, you have to admit that you need help. But the people on the other side of that counter are caring, and are dedicated. And if we don't have the answers, we know where you can get the answers. So, go to your church, go to your neighbor, talk to the person at McDonald's across the counter. Someone will have that answer or have that card like they gave me to direct you in the right. And I think, what we do and what other associations do is so important because the resources are there, but no one knows about them. There was so much more that we could have taken opportunities for that we weren't aware of until I did start, going down to Second Harvest and volunteering at the Christian Help Center and realizing, I always say it takes 100 hands or more to get that can of food on the table. And what that can of food means is that it gives that family hope. That's one less thing they have to say no to their kids. And it does make a difference. And their time and volunteerism and what people are doing to support us make a difference.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing that
Sure.
today. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Now it's time for a short break. Thank you for being with us. And when we return, we'll find out what you can do to help Second Harvest Food Bank meet the needs of the community. We'll be back soon. Thank you so much for being with us today.